Welcome into another episode of Three True Values Big Board. I'm your host, James Fletcher, alongside Jamie Shaw as we break down the latest in the NBA draft world. We're going to go through kind of the top of the big board here today. We're going to go through 1 through 14 a little bit. We're going to get a little more in depth the further down we go. Obviously, we've had at length conversations about the top guys in this class. So, want to get a little bit better look at the guys who are filling out the lottery and who could continue to rise up and make the top of this draft even more interesting as the season unfolds. Jamie, thanks for being here once again and talking more hoops with us as we got more and more of a data set to really lean on.
Yeah, James, no, it's awesome. I always enjoy our weekly conversations we have, and even through the week when we text back and forth and everything. It's always exciting to basketball knowledge and stuff. I agree with you. I think that this class we're kind of seeing tiers. Like I think there's a clear top four. I think when you have AJ Darren, you have Cam Boozer and Caleb Wilson. I think there's a clear top four as to whatever order you want. And I think this draft gets kind of exciting at number 5. I think from number 5 going down. I think that's where the excitement kind of starts. So this is a fun one.
Yeah, you set us up there for sure. 1 through 4, we're going to kind of leave that conversation tabled for now. We both have AJ at number 1. A lot of people like Darren Peterson, understandable the skill set that he brings. And then you get into Cam Boozer and Caleb Wilson, that debate that is going to, I think, continue to ramp up as they play each other in ACC competition. But we start at number 5, where I think that there's a kind of a mix here of guys. I think Nate Ament still in that conversation, hasn't been quite as efficient as you would like to this point, but he's got all the physical tools. He's got kind of the feel early on that you like to see. Chris Sinak, I think, is kind of the high ceiling guy who could get up into this conversation if he continues to develop over the course of the year. He's still got a little ways to go. We know that he's one of the big swing or miss targets in this draft just because of kind of the floor of where he is now versus the ceiling of what you can see in the kind of mold of player that he can become. And then you've got the 2 point guards who are in the mix here as well, Mikel Brown and Kingston Fleming. And that's where I want to start is those 2 guys. You, of course, have ranked these guys for a long time. Where do they separate from each other, Fleming and Brown?
Well, for me, I think this conversation is a 2-point guard conversation for PG1, but I think the 2 are Kingston Flemings and LeBaron Philon. I don't think Mikel Brown's in the PG1 conversation just yet. So obviously, I guess towards your question, when it comes to these 2 guys, I would have Kingston ahead of Mikel. In this talk, I had Kingston ahead of Mikel coming out of high school. I had Kingston as number 1 point guard in the class. Coming out of high school for these freshmen, and just simply looking at what he does at the point of attack. I think Kingston's somebody who puts pressure consistently on the paint by beating his man without needing a screen or anything, but he consistently puts pressure on the paint, and he can go even further and put pressure on the front of the rim, either finishing above the rim with the athleticism, but also the crafty nature of being able to finish left hand, right hand, and also make reads as he collapses the defense. But another differentiator between those 2, because I haven't seen Mikel necessarily consistently be able to put pressure on the rim or the paint. He's got a crafty handle, he's got the ability to create open space and all that stuff, but a lot of that goes into step back type jump shots and maybe even some floaters. As he continues to move forward. But on the other side of the floor, defensively, I think Kingston Flemings is a real differentiator at the point of attack, especially over Mikel. We haven't seen a ton of defense coming from Mikel that it has with Kingston. He had 8 steals against Florida State the other night. He's averaging 2 steals per game for a Houston team who takes great pride, in the defensive end of the floor. So when you're talking to, for me, at this point in time, 11 games into the season, 10, 11 games into the season, LeBaron Philon and Mikel Brown are the 2, 1-2 for point guard with Mikel behind him. With Kingston Flemings, obviously, with Kingston Flemings and Mikel Brown, I would have Kingston Flemings at this point in time over. My question with Kingston, though, I don't want to say he's without fault. Mm-hmm. He's currently shooting over 50% from 3. What is the sustainability of the jump shot? Yeah. How does it continue to look? How does he continue to be a threat as a pull-up jump shooter? I think if you're a guard, the pull-up jump shot is possibly a little bit more, I don't even want to say more important, but there's a lot of value in a pull-up jump shooter as a lead guard, all that type of stuff. How does he sustain that? What does that look like coming February? Where's those numbers at and everything too? Because it's a small volume size as well right now. Mikel's 26, 27% from 3 right now, so his stuff isn't great right now either, but I buy the shot. I think that Mikel will be a good jump shooter as it comes to time. Still questions out about Kingston as that long term, but everything else on the floor, I think Kingston does at a high level.
Yeah, I think with Fleming too, it's going to be interesting to see the underlying stats. Like you kind of talked about, the pull-up jump shooting is what's really going to matter to him in his future as a point guard, versus some of the catch and shoot that he's still going to be able to do at Houston because he's got Milos Uzan in that backcourt with him, Emmanuel Sharp even on the ball a little bit as a veteran guy who's been in that system before. So interested to see how that plays out. You mentioned Philon, and I've got him in this lottery conversation as well. We talked on a previous episode, I think, about just how he's been able to pressure the paint and get to the rim, and how the processing has continued to improve in addition to the play finishing. Two things that are going to be huge for him as he continues to develop and tries to build his stock even further. I think with all three of these guys, it's the sustainability of the jump shot, because that is such an important part of basketball, and we're seeing it more and more. If you're going to be shorter than, even now we've got point guards in the league who are 6'6", 6'7". So if you're going to be shorter than that, you've got to be able to keep the defense off balance by pulling that ball back out to the 3-point line and being able to knock those down off the dribble more often than not as a point guard. So interesting to see how those three guys continue to shift through. Obviously, Mikal had the incredible international play heading into the season. Kingston Fleming has probably been the best of the group in terms of out achieving what we expected, and LeBaron Philon might have the best numbers, raw numbers for a point guard. So,
expectations with Kingston, he was the number 1 rated point guard in the class.
Yes.
So the expectations were for him to be better than Mikal.
Well, even then, though, I would argue that on that Houston team, I just expected him to have less of a role than somebody else, just because he had Uzan in front of him. You look at the veterans that Houston team had. To see him kind of become the go-to option was not something I had on my card, not necessarily from, like you said, his talent standpoint, but from a development curve. I just didn't think he was going to be given the opportunities that he's just forced his way into so far.
No, without question. I think you hit the nail on the head with that opportunity and all that stuff, and being able, like you said, forcing his way into the conversation also. And a little bit back to Philon as well. I don't know if we're going to talk about him now or talk about him later, but since you kind of brought it up a little bit as well, his ability to touch the paint, just an unbelievable crafty handle to get where he wants on the floor. When you look at what Kingston Fleming is, he's very different, but they both put pressure on the front of the rim, pressure on the paint with their handle. Kingston is more of just a first step burst past you. LeBaron's more of just a crafty handle, almost like again, not a one-to-one and all that stuff, but you know how Kyrie gets into the paint. Kyrie gets to the spots using a crafty handle and doing all that stuff. LeBaron's not Kyrie. Nobody's Kyrie. Kyrie might be one of one when it comes to what he's able to do on the basketball floor. So with that out of the way, but that's more of how LeBaron gets it. But what he does is he's putting pressure downhill, putting pressure on the defense, making them either backtrack or scramble, which is opening up offense for his team. And both of those guys are able to do that. Now, Mikal has a crafty handle. He's just not quite yet toggling in between getting downhill all the way, collapsing a defense, and stepping back into a more comfortable jump shot, which a lot of times is being off balance, which is hurting his percentages as to where they're at right now. So, just kind of what we're looking at, how I would tier him: LeBaron, Kingston, and then Mikal for me. Darius Acuff, Darius Acuff's making a case. And there's a huge game this week coming up with Kingston and Darius, Houston and Arkansas playing. Acuff's been really good these last couple games too. So I'm going to be curious to see what his season continues to look like and how he continues his way into winning basketball. But LeBaron Philon for me has been the one that's really just taken a massive step this year from what he was last year when he was being talked about as possibly a first-round draft pick into what he is right now, being possibly the best point guard in a heavy class. I think Philon's a third of the way in. We still got 2/3 of the season to go, long ways to go between now and then, and lots of more data points to hit. But Philon's been good.
For sure. I think those are the three names, and then Acuff. You mentioned that fourth name that's really making his case that he should be up in here in this lottery conversation soon. With his play, we'll get that big test against Houston and definitely be talking about that over the coming months. I want to talk now a little bit about the power forward kind of set of names here. We've got Chris Sinak. We talked about him in the intro. Super high ceiling, but it's a lot of theoretical stuff. It reminds me of the evaluation. He was an international guy, but how we talked about Alex Sarr a couple of years ago as a prospect. It was a lot of, yes, we see what he can become. We see what people who look like him and play like him turn into when it hits. And that is an extremely valuable piece. You look at the Evan Mobleys, the Jaren Jacksons across the NBA who have had a big time impact. And so to have that kind of ceiling, and you look at the rebounding that he's already been able to translate really well, the defense is there, but it's continuing to find consistency, continuing to find the offensive skill set and refine it more than anything. I think he kind of knows what he wants to do, but it's finding within the flow of the offense where his offense is going to come from and how to make it part of the flow is what I'm looking from him. And you look at kind of two different options, completely different. You've got Thomas Hauck in this conversation, who I've got up into the top 10. I texted you recently and said, look, Thomas Hauck just keeps moving up my board, and I don't know what to do about it because it doesn't feel very, NBA draft big board to have a junior in college who just keeps sliding up and up and up when he doesn't feel like he maybe has super high all-star potential. But the floor on that guy is just incredible. You know what you're going to get. And then Koa Pete, who just continues to produce winning basketball every time he's out on the floor. So three very different power forwards here. Some of it, of course, is going to come down to the teams that are picking in this range. What are they looking for? Are they looking for a long runway with a Sinak? Are they looking for an immediate plug and play of a Thomas Hauck? Do they have the kind of players around to fit a Koa Pete into the offensive system? So much that goes into this, but there's three really fascinating names that I think are going to continue to shift all over these mock drafts and the boards for the next few months.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with all of them. Chris Sinak is the flashes. The flashes are high. The flashes are what first put him in the top 10. I guess we were on 3 then, and where things kind of shifted as they progressed forward to being a universal top 10. The flashes. I mean, he just does things at 6'10", moves in ways that most 6'10" people can't. And you see the flashes of the jump shot. You see him being able to sit and slide on the defensive end of the floor. You see his ability to open up his hips and move down and guard. But just finding the consistency and how does he consistently score? What are his spots on the floor? Where is he most dangerous at? And continuing to work at how to get to those spots on the floor. And then on the defensive end, just the consistency of angles and footwork and all that type of stuff. But I agree with you that the ceiling's high. And what's been impressive with him so far is his ability to rebound. Mm-hmm. While he's figuring all this other stuff out so far this season, he has shown that he can consistently rebound. And that's massive. That's huge. That's why he's staying on the floor. That's why Kelvin Sampson is taking these inconsistent moments he's having, because he consistently rebounds the basketball. Right. So hanging your hat on that and continue to move forward and progress in the other things. His ceiling is high. How consistently can he get? I agree with you on Koa Pete. It's an anomaly. It's one of those things where I just might chalk this one up to I don't know. Because Koa Pete doesn't check the boxes. I don't even know if he's taken a 3-point jump shot this entire year. 6'7", not the best athlete in the world, but he continues to find a way. He continues to win at the highest level, and he's always done it. He has 4 gold medals to his name. He has 4 state championships to his name. He's played 17U basketball since he was 8th grade on the AAU circuit, and he continues to produce. You know, it's just one of those things that I expect him to produce until he doesn't. You know, mm-hmm. Is it for me? It might not be for me, but I completely understand if you love him.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it is with Koa Pete. He's just one of those guys that he contributes a little bit across the board. Obviously, the jump shooting is not there, but he's got creation. You can line him up in different spots on the floor. He's got great passing feel. He's a physical defender. He'll rebound. He can push the break, initiate the offense, battle on the boards, finish at the rim, and now we're seeing some athletic pop that he has with a little bit of a runway.
Yeah.
So Koa Pete's an interesting one, and Thomas Hauck is really what he's done. He's always had a high motor. He's been that guy that'll just throw the ball on the floor and I'm going to run through a brick wall. Yeah. He's always had that. Now he's getting skilled. Now he's figuring out ways. Todd Golden's been doing a really good job of getting sets and getting actions to where he's getting downhill, especially going right hand, getting downhill to the basket, and he's just straight line to the rim and finishing. He's dunking on guys. He's a very good athlete. He's got great length. He's still got projectability with that length too as he continues to move forward in the 6'8", maybe 6'9" range, good length. and some broad shoulders or some wide set shoulders where he can put on weight and continue to get stronger. He's shooting the ball better, and he's just overall looking more skilled. He's very good at moving off the ball. He's very good at getting to his spots while still kind of limited and raw. Again, like I said, he's very right hand dominant, and pace is a thing for him. But he's still very good at getting to his spots efficiently. Mm-hmm. And I think Todd Golden has a lot to do with that as well, in the types of sets that he's running and getting him into and the actions he's using him in as well. But he's somebody who's continued. He came in as a no-star recruit after taking a prep year at Perkiomen, comes into Florida, finds some time a little bit as a freshman, gets into the rotation as a sophomore, and now he is the top of the scouting report for a top 25 team in the defending national champions, and still getting 20 points or so. It's been fascinating to see. There's some holes in his game, and there's some stuff that you need to clear up with it and everything as well. But there's also a lot of stuff to like there with Thomas Houck. And that group, and that group is going to be fascinating. I'm so glad that you put those three together, because it's going to be fascinating to see as to where they end up at. Right now, I think the lottery conversation is good. Will they continue to rise into that talk as possibly being a top 5 guy, or will they fall maybe toward the latter half of the first round or mid round, all that type of stuff? Where will that group, because those are guys that, you have to fall in love with them. You have to really have a plan for them and fall in love with them. And will teams continue to do that as they continue to dive into more and more film?
Yeah, I've spoken about Houck a couple of times. I even wrote a story about how he kind of makes that Florida offense work with the 3 considered bigs, I guess, out there, him being one of them. Last year when I saw him, I ended up having him really high before he ended up announcing that he was returning to Florida. But what I kind of believed was that he was going to be a 4, and that he was just going to be a super athletic mismatch for any big that had to guard him. Seeing him play the 3 and seeing how his just basketball IQ translates into that role has made me even more excited about his runway and his potential to continue to grow. Because I think a lot of times we see freshmen and we say, okay, he's one who's going to continue to grow. But you talked about it being the zero star recruit, coming in and really learning the game under Todd Golden these last couple of years, continuing to develop. We have seen more and more these guys who have the basketball IQ and have the physical tools, when they are under the right mentorship, when they continue to develop late into their career, they can end up taking these huge leaps at this stage and still having so much more to unlock. I think about Cedric Coward in this last draft class, kind of out of nowhere, out of sight, out of mind with an injury. People get their eyes on him and they say, hold on, this is not some guy who went from Division II up into Washington State. This is a real deal lottery prospect that we need to be taking seriously. And he's already translating that to NBA stats and impact on the floor. So this is a really untapped group of players. I think these kind of older than what you're expecting to take a leap guys who are continuing to show you night in and night out that they're getting better and better.
The NBA loves the tweener forward, and you got to be a tweener for the right reasons. Now you got to be somebody who can guard and knock down a shot. If you can slide your feet and you can knock down a shot, the NBA loves tweener forwards. There's a long history of you going from Jarris Walker to Taylor Hendricks. You mentioned Cedric Coward. The list of just keeps going on and on and on. Colin Murray Boyles of guys that are kind of just fall into a non-traditional 3-4-5, just a tweener. Mm-hmm. The NBA is really liking those guys right now.
For sure. They give you a lot of versatility on the defensive end, which teams extremely value.
It's spacing on the offensive end.
Yes. So as we talk here, I want to talk about a couple of bigs. There's not a lot of centers at the top end of this class, it feels like, but there's depth to the center position. And there are 2 guys who I think are still up here in this conversation. One of them we still haven't gotten to see a lot, Jaden Quainton. So we won't talk at length about him. We kind of know what we think about him to this point. We'll talk about him more in the conference schedule, I think, once he comes back for Kentucky and see what impact he has on that team. But Hannes Steinbach is a guy who flashed in international play, had a big growth spurt over the last few months. I think that's played a big role in me kind of reevaluating what I think about him. And there's just no questioning the impact he's had on that Washington team on both the results and just the raw stats, which are incredible to watch.
Watching him this summer with Germany, the U19s, FIBA, you saw somebody that was very productive, but the production came in kind of a stiff manner.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that had great instincts for how to go get the basketball, but offensively was kind of straight lines and everything. What you're seeing at Washington is almost a reshaped type body. The fluidity that he's playing with now, he's still going to have to get the jump shot down a little bit more and maybe just tighten up the efficiencies to get to his spots on the offensive end. But you're seeing some passing flashes. You're seeing some ability to put on the floor, and you're seeing the makings of a possible jump shot. But the fluidity that he brings of being able to change directions and all that is very intriguing, while still also having that sixth sense of how to track a basketball, go get a basketball, see ball, get ball. Averaging a double-double. I think he's had a double-double in every one but one of his games that he's played at college so far. Scoring the ball with efficiency and just finding production in that way. When it was this summer, when watching him, I understood the production and I loved it. I didn't see the athletic transition.
Yeah.
Being able to make it with the fluid nature of the athleticism, being able to move and all that type of stuff. Seeing him at Washington now, watching games at Washington, he looks a whole lot more fluid and athletic, with that athleticism being able to possibly translate and grow upon.
Yeah, when I watched him in the summer, I think we talked about it off the air a little bit. It was all that you were talking about. It was a little bit stiff. Yeah, it's super productive, but what does it really translate to with better athletes, with more mature players, bigger, faster, stronger? And I think I might have noticed a little bit that he looked a little bit taller. He looks big now. Like he looks. I think he was listed like 6'9", 6'10", depending on where you look. Now he's listed at 6'11". He looks, and this is not a comparison by any means of their games, but one of the things that really stood out to me the first time that I watched him on tape for this Washington team was I was looking for Hannes Steinbeck, and I looked around and I said, all right, well, there's a guy who looks like Larry Markkinen, but what is that? Like the super long arms, the kind of thin body that looks like it's going to fill out. And you're like, oh, hold on. This is something different than just another center that I'm watching some film on. And so, physical growth is part of these projections and part of this trajectory. He just looks the part. And if he continues to grow, we're talking about now a whole new realm of comparisons to get into.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. And there's some interesting things he can do on the ball too. Some processing stuff that he has, and he does have some touch and hands. Put on the floor for a dribble or two and create advantages that way too. So for me, the height for me, the athletic fluidity kind of opens things up a little bit and gives him a little bit more upside and intrigue moving forward, while still really, really, really rebounding the basketball.
For sure. I want to talk about as we kind of start to maybe not wrap up. We'll go through a few more names here, but as we wrap up kind of the guys who I have in my lottery right now, I want to talk about a couple of guards who are in the wing mold more than they are the on ball. We got Braylon Mullins, who we're finally getting to our first looks at UConn. He looks like he's going to be everything that was promised. A guy who can knock down shots at a high level, really good in just the team construct, the kind of the consummate UConn guard to come in and fill out the rotation and the starting lineup throughout the year. Tunde Yusufu, we know, high level scorer who's kind of finding his way on this Baylor team. And then Cameron Carr, the breakout star, who is alongside Tunde, kind of carrying this Baylor offense to great success. We look at, I think we've talked about Tunde and Carr kind of in combo before on this show. And we talked about how Carr's numbers were super, super high in the percentages. Tunde's were a little bit lower. And I said, even if they kind of balance out, we talk about one going higher, one going a little bit lower, we're still going to have great production out of the two. And I think that's what we've continued to see through non-conference play.
Yeah, and they're so interesting too because they're so different. Tunde is, just put your head down and just go type. The skill you would think needs a little bit of development. The pace needs a little bit of development, but the production remains, where it is. He's just a load to be able to have to handle. Dribbling when his head gets down. He's an athletic. He's big and strong and physical and just plays hard because he plays hard. How does that translate? We'll see. He needs to continue to evolve his game, especially when it comes to the pace aspect of things, self-creation and all that. Outside of when somebody's as big and strong and physical as you, when they cut you off, how do you counter that and how do you get to a spot and still create an advantage for your team? There's some stuff there. Cam Carr, He right now, after the first 10, 9, 10, 11 games, whatever it is, embodies everything that you look for one of those picks toward the NBA, and somebody that spreads the floor, low usage, catch and shoot, and has upside on defense. He's a springy athlete, got great length, so there's projectability still to go with the frame. But 42% from three on high volume, and ability to attack a closeout and dunk on somebody. There's a lot to like. There's a complementary type guy, a guy who pulls gravity and has upside on the defensive end of the floor. That's pretty much, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of exactly what a lot of NBA teams are looking for when it comes to complementary type guys to make their superstars, to give their superstars more space and not have to exert max effort on the defensive end of the floor. Well, Cameron Carr is somebody who gives great space and will guard on the other end of the floor potentially. So there's a lot to like there with what you have with Cam Carr and with Braylon Mullins, who you mentioned as well. Game over the last 18 months has just been astronomical. The development he's brought in it. Always been a shooter. That's what initially got him into the I guess it was the on 3 150 then, Rivals 150, and then he continued to grow. Then we put him in the top 50, top 35 or so because he continued to grow his game, ultimately getting him into the top 15 at the end of the day because his game was more than just scoring. He was you could see him able to get to his spots. There was movement shooting involved. He was able to attack a closeout. He was able to get into the mid-range off of 2 dribbles and get to spots in that way as well. It's just a well-rounded, as opposed to a pitch and catch shoot. The shots he was getting were a whole lot more translatable. And then watching with Danny Hurley, what he's able to do, if you're able to get to a spot, Danny Hurley's going to be able to draw you up a play. Danny Hurley's able to get Braylon Mullins 8, 9, 10, 11 shots in a game where he's most comfortable on that on the floor. And Braylon Mullins is advanced enough of a scorer, advanced enough as a shooter to where he has spots on the floor already. Hurley's getting him those shots, and I think we're going to see a good value in what Braylon Mullins is able to bring. Now, defensively, he's going to have to continue to work on that end or continue to add strength and stuff because he gets knocked off his spots and everything. But there's a toughness and a physicality that he brings. There's a unique, not unique, he's got a little bounce to him as well. But there's a ability to movement, shoot, and find spots on the floor and knock down shots that's valuable.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go, as we wrap up today's show, I want to go with both of us. I know we both have one of our outside the lottery, but somebody that we really like and we think is starting to creep his way up into this conversation. So I'll let you go ahead and lead off with your guy who you really like to get in the mix here.
Somebody I'm really looking at is Joshua Jefferson at Iowa State. Really just like the versatility that he's bringing, his expanded game, obviously at 6'8". He's showing that he can be a little bit more than a complementary type player. He's been an offensive hub for this Iowa State team at times this year. Whenever Taylor Lipsey's even been out, he's averaging 5 assists per game so far. Shooting the ball well. Defensively, he's able to slide and switch and move up and down the lineup as well. He's older, obviously, as a senior. Once you get past the initial stage of the lottery, what you see is a lot of obviously the early lottery teams are rebuilding, trying to just acquire as much talent as possible. But once you get to the back end of the lottery and even on down the first, you're seeing teams that are trying to make that push. There's a lot of value in a complementary type player or a secondary type player who can guard multiple spots, has the advantage of being able to create advantages and process with the ball in their hand. And just kind of make plays for everybody around them, make plays for themselves, as well as guard multiple spots on the floor. There's a lot of value in those type of guys, almost in a plug and play type capacity where you know what you're getting with him, getting into a rotation pretty quickly, but also the versatility that he brings, able to guard multiple spots at 6'8", able to move and slide, able to process with the ball in his hands. And he's shooting the ball a little bit better, getting a little bit more offensive oriented. I think Joshua Jefferson has the ability to be one of those guys that as you continue to dive into the tape, as you get him into interviews, do all that type of stuff and dive into him, I could see an upward movement with what he's doing.
For sure. And he's another one of these guys who's kind of the tweener. Right. Yeah. Right. And he checks a lot of the boxes. He's going to play really high level defense. You know that you can stick him out of the floor and he's not going to take away usage from your star. He's going to go out there and he's going to do his job. And there is a long track record, not just in the modern NBA, but across NBA history of guys who do what he does. If you can come in and just be a role player, you can stick around for 15, 18 years, collecting paychecks and being on really, really good teams year after year.
Yeah, 100%. He's that.
Yep. I'm gonna go a little bit off the trail. My guy is not a college basketball guy, and I wish he was. I wish that we were getting to see him. A lot of the international guys came over this year. My guy did not. Sergio Delaria, point guard at Valencia, a 6'6" guy who is playing on the ball a little bit more this season than he did last year, shooting 50% from three in La Liga right now. He just knocks down shots at a high level. He's got the size that you're looking for. I think he's going to continue to develop as a ball handler. And so to see his kind of trajectory last year, he was draft eligible. He ended up being a guy who withdrew kind of late in the process to get more reps this year on his team, obviously overseas. But he's a guy who's playing in real competitions too. This is not one of these international prospects who's playing in some youth league or playing a lower level competition. He is playing with the A team and in the Eurobasket competitions. He's playing at a high level, and not the counting stats won't always jump off the page, as they often don't for some of these international prospects who take the path that he's taking, but just the efficiency numbers and the continued growth are two things that stand out to me. I think he's going to continue to rise up boards from where he's at now until the draft comes around.
I love that. You've been talking about this guy for what, 12 months now.
Yeah.
So
last year I fell in love with his game, watching the highlights overseas. I said, this is a guy who's going to be in the NBA. I don't know what it all is going to eventually turn into, but he's continued to get better and better. So I'm going to keep riding this train and see what he turns into when he does reach the NBA.
No, I love it. Absolutely, man. No, absolutely. That's awesome to see that he continues to get better and continues to go with it too. One more to shout out. Not going to go in depth about it. Juke Harris at Wake Forest is somebody to watch for as well. I think there's a real chance that he, as the season continues, if he continues what he's doing, could rise.
Yep. I think Keaton Wagler could end up in this conversation as well if he continues his upward trajectory.
He could end up pretty highly in this conversation too.
Right. Breakout guy at Illinois, obviously has really gotten in the mix there and continues to improve. Thanks for tuning in here on Three True Values Big Board. We will be taking a couple of weeks off here. Got some holiday travels, got a wedding for me to have to prepare for and eventually go through. Yes, thank you. And I appreciate all of you who have reached out, who have said congratulations. We will be back in the new year with more content. We will be talking NBA draft. We will be talking recruiting right here on the show. Thanks for tuning in. I'm James Fletcher. That's Jamie Shaw.